They say family is supposed to keep you safe. But what happens when the ones you love most are the ones who push you into the shadows? I never thought the people I sacrificed everything for would try to hide me away, stripping me of my dignity, as if I were some burden they could tuck out of sight. When I realized my own children and their spouses had quietly agreed to move me into the basement for my safety, I didn't scream or protest. I simply watched, took note, and let every small betrayal settle inside me like cold stones. For over 60 years I held this family together, financially, emotionally, and in every way that mattered. My name is Margaret Hall, and now I see everything with new eyes. Where are you watching from? Subscribe to my story, and join me as I uncover secrets, shift the power in my family, and remind them exactly whose house they're standing in. "Mom, we need to talk," David said, settling into the kitchen chair across from me. His wife Susan stood behind him, arms crossed, that familiar look of impatience on her face. I set down my coffee cup. "What about, honey?" It's about living arrangements." David couldn't meet my eyes. "The kids are getting older, and with us staying here temporarily." "It's not temporary anymore, is it?" I asked quietly. Susan stepped forward. "Margaret, we've been thinking. You're getting older, and we worry about you going up and down these stairs all the time. What if you fall?" "I've been managing these stairs for 40 years," I said. "But, Mom, things change. We all have to adapt." David's voice carried that tone he used when he thought he was being reasonable. "The basement has that new safety railing we installed. You'd have your own space down there." I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had his face become so calculating? My own space? In my own house? "That's not what we meant," Susan said quickly. "We just think it would be safer. The kids are always running around up here, making noise. You'd have peace and quiet." Linda walked in then, my daughter who used to call me her best friend. "Mom, what's going on?" "We're discussing the basement arrangement," David said. Linda nodded as if she'd been expecting this conversation. "Oh, right. Mom, it really does make sense. You're barely using the kitchen now anyway." Something cold settled in my chest. Barely using it? Well, I mean, we do most of the cooking now. You could still come up whenever you want. Linda sat down, her voice taking on that patient tone people use with children. "We're just trying to make things easier for everyone." I stood up slowly. "Easier for everyone." "Mom, don't be dramatic," David said. "We're doing this because we care. About you." I looked around the kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals, where I'd helped with homework, where I'd held crying children and celebrated birthdays. "When do you want me to move?" "Well, we were thinking maybe this weekend," Susan said. "I could help you pack your things." "How generous of you." The words came out flat. David reached across the table. "Mom, this is for your own good. You know how worried we get about you." I pulled my hand away. "I need to think about this." "There's not much to think about," Linda said. "We've already talked it through. Mark agrees it's the best solution." "Mark agrees?" I turned to face her fully. "When did my son-in-law get a vote in where I live?" "Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be," David said. "We're all just trying to do what's best." I walked to the window, looking out at the garden I'd tended for decades. "What's best for whom?" "For everyone," Susan said firmly. "For you, for the kids, for all of us living under one roof." I turned back to them. "I see." "So you'll consider it?" Linda asked hopefully. "Oh, I'll consider everything," I said. every single thing. They exchanged glances, probably thinking they'd won. David stood up. Great. Susan can help you sort through what you want to take downstairs. I can manage my own belongings. Thank you. After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen. I'd raised these children in this house, paid every mortgage payment even when money was tight. I'd given Linda my bedroom when she was going through her divorce. I'd never asked for much. In return, just a little kindness. But kindness, it seemed, had its limits. I picked up my phone and dialed. Mrs. Carter, it's Margaret. Could you come over for coffee? I need to talk to someone who remembers when this was still my home. Grandma, why are you moving to the basement? Emily asked, helping me fold my clothes into boxes. I looked at my granddaughter's concerned face. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that don't make much sense, sweetheart. But it's dark down there, and cold. I know, honey. I smoothed her hair. But sometimes we have to make the best of difficult situations. David appeared in my doorway. How's the packing going? We're managing, I said. Mom, I know this is hard, but you'll see. It'll be better for everyone. He picked up one of my boxes. Less clutter up here, more space for the kids. Less clutter, I repeated. Is that what I am now? That's not what I meant. Emily tugged on my sleeve. Grandma, you're not clutter. You're family. David's face reddened. Of course she's family, Em. That's why we want her to be safe and comfortable. Then why does she look sad? Emily asked. I knelt down to her level. Sometimes being sad is okay, Emily. It means something important is changing. Susan called from downstairs. David, can you help me move the furniture? I want to rearrange the living room now that we have more space. Emily's eyes widened. They're already changing your room? Apparently so, I said quietly. That afternoon, I carried my last box down to the basement. The safety railing they'd mentioned was just a simple handrail, nothing special. The space was clean but sterile, nothing like the warm bedroom I'd slept in for 40 years. Linda found me sitting on my new bed. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, I said. I know this is an adjustment, but you'll see. It's really for the best. She sat beside me. And you can always come upstairs whenever you want. Can I? Of course. This is still your house. I looked at her. Is it, Linda? What do you mean? Nothing. I'm just tired. After she left, I opened my purse and pulled out a small notebook. I wrote the date at the top of the first page, then began, documenting everything I could remember from the past few days. Every conversation, every dismissive comment, every decision made without consulting me. Mrs. Carter knocked on the basement door that evening. Margaret, I brought you some soup. Come in, Helen, I called. She looked around the basement, her face tight with disapproval. This is where they put you? This is where I'm staying, I corrected. For how long? I smiled grimly. We'll see. Mrs. Carter sat in the folding chair David had brought down. You know, dear, your David was asking me about the property taxes yesterday. Seemed mighty confused when I told him you'd always handled those yourself. Did he now? Asked me who he should call about getting the information. I told him he should ask you, of course. She leaned forward. Margaret, do they have any idea how this house actually runs? I thought about the bills I paid, the accounts I managed, the paperwork I'd handled for decades while they lived their lives. I don't think they do, Helen. I don't think they have any idea at all. Well, she said with a knowing smile, maybe it's time they learned. Mom, The internet's been weird all morning. David called down to the basement. Did you change the password or something? I looked up from the box of financial documents I'd been sorting through. Why would I change the password? I don't know, but we can't log into anything. Netflix, Hulu, even the grocery delivery app. That's strange, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Susan's voice carried down the stairs. David, just call the cable company. She probably pressed something by accident. I smiled to myself as I continued organizing decades of paperwork. Bank statements, insurance policies, property deeds, investment records, all the invisible infrastructure that kept this family afloat. An hour later, Linda knocked on my door. Mom, did you do something to the streaming services? What do you mean? They're all canceled. David called and they said the account holder requested cancellation yesterday. I set down the file I was holding. That's odd. Mom, you are the account holder. Did you cancel them? Oh, that's right. Yes, I did. I turned back to my papers. I figured since I'm down here in the basement, I wouldn't need them anymore. But we use those services. I know, sweetheart. You'll need to set up your own accounts now. Linda's voice rose. Mom, that's not fair. We were all using those. Were you paying for them? She paused. Well, no, but then they weren't really ours, were they? They were mine. This is ridiculous. You're being petty. I looked at her calmly. I'm being practical. I'm adjusting to my new situation down here. Mrs. Carter arrived for our afternoon coffee, carrying a plate of cookies and a satisfied expression. Margaret, your son stopped by earlier. Asked me the strangest questions about your utility bills. What kind of questions? Wanted to know which company provides your electricity, who handles the water bill, that sort of thing. I told him he should ask you, but he said he didn't want to bother you with small details. She shook her head. Small details? As if keeping the lights on is a small detail. What did you tell him? I told him I had no idea. Said you'd always been so private about your business affairs. Mrs. Carter winked. Which is true, isn't it? That evening, I sat at my small desk in the basement, spreading out 40 years of financial records. Every mortgage payment, every tax bill, every insurance premium. All paid from my accounts, managed by my careful bookkeeping. I picked up my phone and started making calls. Hello, this is Margaret Hall. I need to put a temporary hold on automatic payments for my utility accounts. Yes, I understand there may be interruption of service. No, just a few days should be sufficient. Emily appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Grandma, are you okay down here all by yourself? Come sit with me, honey. I patted the chair beside my desk. She looked at all the papers. What are you doing? Learning, I said. I'm learning exactly what I've been taking care of all these years. It looks like a lot of work. It is a lot of work, more than anyone upstairs realizes. Emily picked up a bank statement. These numbers are really big. Yes, they are. Are you rich, Grandma? I smiled. I'm comfortable, sweetheart. Your grandmother has been very careful with money over the years. Is that why Daddy and Mommy moved in here? Out of the mouths of babes. What do you think, Emily? She considered this seriously. I think they needed help, and you gave it to them. But they forgot to say thank you. You're a very smart girl, Grandma. I don't like that you're down here. It's not fair. I hugged her tight. Sometimes life isn't fair, sweetheart, but sometimes we can make it better. The lights went out at dinner time on Friday. What the hell? David's voice carried down from the kitchen. Language, David! Susan scolded. Check the breakers. I sat in my basement room, reading by lamplight. I'd prepared for this, setting up battery-powered lamps and even a small camp stove. The main electrical panel was down here with me, after all. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Mom, do you know anything about the power going out? It went out? I looked up from my book, feigning surprise. How strange. The breaker panel is down here. Can you check it? I wouldn't know how to do that, honey. Your father always handled those things. David fumbled around in the dark with his phone flashlight. There. That one's switched off. Well, switch it back on then. He flipped the breaker, and the lights came back on upstairs. That's weird. Why would it just flip off like that? Electrical systems can be mysterious, I said. Maybe it's the age of the house. 20 minutes later, the lights went out again. This time Linda came down. Mom, what's going on with the electricity? I have no idea, sweetheart. This is the second time tonight. Maybe you should call an electrician. Do you know a good one? I looked at her steadily. I used to handle all that, remember? But I figured since I'm down here in the basement, you'd want to manage those things yourselves now. Linda's face flushed. Mom, you're being difficult. I'm being realistic. You wanted me out of the way, so I'm staying out of the way. The power went out a third time just as Susan was trying to put the kids to bed. This time, all three of them came down. David, Susan, and Linda. Mom, this is getting ridiculous, David said. What's wrong with the electrical system? I don't know, I said calmly. But I can give you the number for the electrician I've used for 20 years. His name is Joe Martinez. Very reliable. Why didn't you mention him before? Susan asked. You didn't ask. We shouldn't have to ask. You should have just told us. I set down my book and looked at her directly. Susan, you moved me to the basement because you didn't want me involved in household decisions anymore. Now you want me to manage the household. Problems? That's not... We never said... You said I was barely using the kitchen. You said I'd have my own space down here. You made it very clear that upstairs is your domain now. I picked up my book again. So manage it. David ran his hands through his hair. Mom, please. We just need your help with this one thing. Will you put the power back on? Linda asked. The kids are scared. I looked at their desperate faces, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Of course. I walked to the panel and flipped the main breaker back to the on position. But you should still call Joe. This could happen again. As they headed back upstairs, I heard Susan whisper to David, how did she know exactly which breaker to flip? Lucky guess, he whispered back. I smiled in the darkness. Lucky guess indeed. Margaret, you've got them all worked up, Mrs. Carter said, settling into her chair with obvious delight. David was at my door again this morning asking about repair services. What kind of repair services? Everything. Plumbing, electrical, heating, and cooling. Poor boy looked completely lost. She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. I told him I couldn't remember which companies you used. Said, my memory isn't what it used to be. Your memory seems fine to me, Helen. Funny how selective it can be. I heard raised voices from upstairs. David and Susan arguing about something. Their voices carried down through the old vents. We can't keep asking your mother every time something goes wrong, Susan was saying. Well, what choice do we have? She's lived here for 40 years. She knows everything about this place. Then maybe we shouldn't have moved her to the basement. It's too late for that now. Besides, she seems fine down there. I shook my head. Fine. As if contentment could be measured by the absence of complaints. Emily appeared at the top of the basement stairs. "Grandma, can I come down?" "Of course, sweetheart." She bounced down the steps, carrying her school backpack. "I have homework, but it's loud up there. Can I do it here with you?" "I'd love the company." As Emily spread her books across my small table, Linda called down, "Em, what are you doing? Homework with Grandma? Come do it up here. There's more room." "I like it better down here," Emily called back. "It's quiet." I helped Emily with her math problems, listening to the ongoing argument upstairs. Susan was complaining about the grocery bill, David was worried about finding work, and Linda was stressed about her own financial situation. "Grandma," Emily said quietly, "why is everyone so upset lately?" "Adults sometimes forget to appreciate what they have," I said. "Do you mean they forgot to appreciate you?" "Such a perceptive child." "What do you think?" "I think they did, and now they're scared because they don't know how to do the things you do." "Very observant, Emily." "Are you going to help them?" I considered this. I'm going to help them learn. That evening, Mark came down to the basement. Linda's husband rarely spoke to me directly, but tonight he seemed different. "Margaret, can we talk?" "Of course. Sit down." He perched on the edge of the folding chair, looking uncomfortable. "I want to apologize." "For what?" "For not speaking up when they decided to move you down here. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to cause problems with Linda." I studied his face. "What changed your mind?" "Watching you these past few weeks, seeing how much you actually do for this family." He rubbed his forehead. "I never realized. Linda always made it sound like you were just retired, relaxing." "Relaxing," I repeated. "But you run everything, don't you? All the bills, all the maintenance, all the planning, even from down here." "I have been, yes." "They don't deserve it, the way they've treated you." He met my eyes. "I'm sorry, Margaret. I should have said something sooner." "Thank you, Mark. That means a lot." "Is there anything I can do to help fix this?" I smiled. "Just keep your eyes open, and maybe help them see what they've been blind to." "I will. I promise." After he left, I opened my notebook and wrote, "Mark, potential ally, finally seeing the truth." The pieces were falling into place. My family was starting to understand that I wasn't just a sweet grandmother who baked cookies and knitted scarves. I was the foundation this house was built on, and foundations, when removed, leave everything else crumbling. "Family meeting," I announced Sunday morning, my voice carrying up the stairs. "Living room. Everyone." "Mom, we're trying to have breakfast," David called back. "Now, please." I climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately, carrying a thick folder of documents. They were all there. David, Susan, Linda, Mark, and Emily. Their faces showed various degrees of confusion and annoyance. "What's this about?" Linda asked. I sat down in my old chair, the one at the head of the room that I'd vacated when they moved me downstairs. "There are things you all need to know." I opened the folder and spread papers across the coffee table. Bank statements, property deeds, insurance policies, investment portfolios. "This is our house," I began, pointing to the deed. "My name is on it, solely. I bought it in 1983, and I've paid every mortgage payment, every tax bill, every insurance premium since then." Susan shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, we know you've contributed. Contributed? I looked at her steadily. Susan, I haven't contributed. I've provided. Everything. This account, I tapped a bank statement, contains the money you call the family savings. It's my money. Every dollar. David leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying that nothing in this house belongs to anyone but me. The utilities are in my name. The insurance is in my name. The mortgage, what's left of it, is in my name. Linda's face had gone pale. But we thought... over the years we just assumed. You assumed wrong. I pulled out another document. This is my will. As it stands now, everything would go to you children equally when I die. Would go? Mark asked quietly. I had a meeting with my attorney yesterday. I wanted to make sure I understood all my options. The room went very quiet. Now, before anyone panics, I'm not making any changes yet. But I want you to understand something. You moved me to the basement because you thought I was in your way. You made decisions about my life without consulting me. You treated me like a burden to be managed. Emily climbed onto my lap. You're not a burden, Grandma. Thank you, sweetheart. I hugged her close. But some people in this room seem to have forgotten that. David found his voice. Mom, we were just trying to... I know what you were trying to do. Create more space for yourselves. Make your lives more convenient, but you forgot something important. I gestured around the room. This is my house. I've spent 60 years building this family, supporting all of you, sacrificing my own comfort for yours. Susan was crying now. We're sorry. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you did hurt me. And more than that, you disrespected me. You treated me like I was senile, like I didn't matter anymore. Linda wiped her eyes. What do you want us to say? What do you want us to do? I want you to remember who I am. I want you to remember what I've done for this family. And I want things to change. Mark spoke up. What kind of changes? First, I'm moving back upstairs, to my bedroom, my house, my room. Of course, David said quickly. We'll move our stuff out today. Second, if you want to continue living here, there will be new rules. Everyone contributes. Everyone shows respect. Everyone remembers that. This is my home, and you are my guests. What if we don't agree? Susan asked, her voice barely a whisper. I looked at her calmly. Then you find somewhere else to live. The silence stretched out until Emily spoke up. I think everyone should say sorry to Grandma. And one by one they did. We need to talk about the realtor, I said Monday morning. David's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. What realtor? The one you contacted about selling my house. The color drained from his face. Who told you that? Does it matter? What matters is that you were making plans to sell my home without discussing it with me. Susan tried to interject. David was just exploring options. Susan, please, let him speak for himself. I turned back to my son. Were you planning to sell my house, David? We thought maybe it would be better for everyone if we found something smaller. More manageable. More manageable for whom? For you. This place is getting too big for you to handle. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Too big for me to handle? David, I've been handling this house for 40 years. I've managed every repair, every bill, every crisis. What I can't handle is my own children plotting behind my back. Linda walked into the kitchen then. took one look at our faces, and tried to back out. "No, Linda, stay. This concerns you, too." I gestured to a chair. "Your brother was just explaining how he contacted a realtor about selling my house." "Oh." Linda sat down heavily. "David, you actually called them?" "You knew about this?" I asked. Linda couldn't meet my eyes. "We talked about it. Just talked. We were worried about your finances, about whether you could afford to keep this place." "My finances?" I stood up slowly. "My finances are none of your business. But since you're so concerned, let me enlighten you." I walked to my purse and pulled out a bank statement. "This is just one of my accounts. Do you see that balance?" David squinted at the paper and his jaw dropped. "Mom, that's..." "More than you expected?" "Yes. I've been careful with money my entire life. I have investments, savings, insurance policies. I can afford this house and anything else I need." Susan stared at the statement. "We had no idea." "No, you didn't. Because you never asked. You just assumed I was some helpless old woman who needed you to make decisions for her." Mark appeared in the doorway. "What's going on?" "Your wife and her family were planning to sell my house without telling me," I said. Mark's face darkened. "They were what?" "It wasn't like that," Linda protested. "We were just concerned." "Concerned enough to call a realtor behind her back?" Mark's voice was rising. "Linda, how could you think that was okay?" "We didn't mean any harm," David said weakly. "But you caused harm," I said firmly. "You betrayed my trust. You made me feel unwanted in my own home. You treated me like I was incompetent." Emily ran into the kitchen, drawn by the raised voices. "What's wrong? Why is everyone yelling?" "We're having a grown-up discussion," Linda said. "About what?" "About respect," I said. "And about truth." Emily looked around at all the adult faces. "Are you in trouble?" she asked David. "Yes," I said. "He is. They all are." "What did they do?" I knelt down to Emily's level. "They forgot that families should take care of each other. They forgot to ask before making important decisions. They forgot to say thank you." Emily nodded solemnly. "That's not nice." "No, it's not." "Are you going to forgive them?" I looked up at my children and their spouses. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. That depends on whether they remember how to be a real family." David cleared his throat. "Mom, what do you want from us?" "I want honesty. I want respect. I want you to remember that I'm your mother, not your burden." "We can do that," Linda said quietly. "Can you? Because this isn't the first time you've made decisions without me. This is just the first time you got caught." The truth of that hung in the air like smoke. "What happens now?" Susan asked. "Now you decide. Do you want to be part of a family that respects each other? Or do you want to continue playing these games?" "We want to be a real family," David said. "Then prove it." Moving back upstairs took 3 hours. 3 hours to reclaim the bedroom I'd slept in for 40 years. To hang my clothes back in my own closet. To place my photographs back on my dresser. David and Mark did the heavy lifting without complaint. Susan stripped the bed they'd been using and helped me put on fresh sheets. Linda organized my medicine cabinet and bathroom supplies. "Is this where you want the rocking chair?" Mark asked. "By the window, please. I like to watch the garden." Emily bounced on my bed. "It's so much better having you back up here, Grandma." "It feels better too, sweetheart." The house dynamics shifted immediately. Meals became conversations again instead of rushed affairs. David started asking my opinion about job prospects. Linda began stopping by to chat instead of just dropping off laundry. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. "Mom, the credit card bill seems high this month," David mentioned Friday evening. "Which credit card?" "The one we've been using for groceries and stuff." I set down my book. "David, that's my credit card. I didn't give you permission to use it." His face reddened. "We've been using it for months. You never said anything." "I never said you could use it either." Susan looked up from her magazine. "We just assumed, since we're all living together." "Susan, assumption seems to be a family problem. Stop assuming and start asking." "What are we supposed to do for groceries?" she asked. "Buy your own, with your own money." "But we don't have much money right now," David protested. "Then get a job." The bluntness of it shocked them both into silence. Linda arrived for Sunday dinner looking strained. "Mom, can we talk privately?" We went to my room and she sat heavily in the rocking chair. "This is harder than I thought it would be," she said. "What is?" "Treating you like an equal instead of someone to take care of. I considered this. Linda, I never needed you to take care of me. I needed you to include me. I know that now, but it's hard to change patterns." "Change is hard," I agreed, "but necessary." "Are you happy? Living back up here with all of us?" I looked out the window at my garden, where Emily was playing with her siblings. "I'm happier than I was in the basement, but happiness isn't really the point." "What is the point?" "Dignity, respect, being seen as a person instead of a problem." Linda nodded. "I'm trying, Mom. We all are." "I know you are, and I appreciate it." Mrs. Carter joined me for coffee Tuesday afternoon, settling into the kitchen chair with obvious satisfaction. "Well, Margaret, you certainly shook things up around here." "Did I? David asked me yesterday if I knew anyone looking for part-time work. Said he needed to start bringing in some income." "Good for him." Susan was at the grocery store Saturday, looking at prices like she'd never seen them before. Heard her telling someone that groceries were more expensive than she realized. I smiled. Learning experiences are valuable. "That they are. And Linda?" "What about Linda?" "She asked me if I thought you were still angry with them." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that anger wasn't the right word. Disappointed, maybe, but working toward forgiveness." "That's accurate." Mrs. Carter leaned forward. "Are you? Working toward forgiveness?" I thought about this. "I think forgiveness is something that has to be earned, Helen. They hurt me deeply. Moving forward will take time." "But you're willing to try." "They're my children. Of course I'm willing to try." "I got a job," David announced Wednesday evening. We were all gathered in the living room after dinner. A new tradition I'd instituted. Family time, I called it. "Congratulations," I said. "What kind of job?" "Assistant manager at the hardware store downtown. It's not much, but it's a start." Susan squeezed his hand. "We're proud of you." Emily looked up from her coloring book. "Does this mean we can buy groceries again?" David's face reddened, but he nodded. "Yes, Em. We'll start buying our own groceries." Mark cleared his throat. "Linda and I have been talking. We think we should pay rent." "Rent?" Linda looked at him in surprise. "Yes, rent. We're living in your mother's house, using her utilities, taking up space. We should contribute." I studied their faces. "That's very thoughtful, but I don't need your money. It's not about need, Mark said. It's about respect, about being responsible adults instead of grown children living off their mother. I like that perspective, I said. Linda nodded slowly. He's right. We should have been doing this all along. Susan spoke up hesitantly. David and I would like to pay rent, too, once he gets his first paycheck. And help with utilities and household expenses, David added. Emily looked around at all the adults. Are we poor now? No, sweetheart, I said. We're just learning, to be fair. Later that evening, Linda knocked on my bedroom door. Come in. She sat on the edge of my bed, looking like she had when she was 12 and needed to confess to breaking something. Mom, I owe you a bigger apology. For what? For all of it. For years of taking advantage of your generosity. For treating you like you owed us something instead of being grateful for what you gave us freely. I patted the bed beside me, and she moved closer. Linda, you were raised to think that parents exist to serve their children. That's partly my fault. I should have taught you better about reciprocity. You gave us everything. How were we supposed to know you needed something? Back, not everything, I said. I needed respect. I needed to be seen as a person with my own needs and feelings. I needed to be included in decisions that affected me. She was crying now. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know how to fix what we broke. You fix it by doing better going forward, I said gently. By remembering this conversation the next time you're tempted to make assumptions about what I need or want. Will you forgive us, eventually? I smoothed her hair like I used to when she was small. I'm already working on it, sweetheart. Forgiveness is a process, not a moment. The next morning, I found a note on my coffee maker from Susan. Thank you for everything you do. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Susan. Small gestures, but they mattered. Mark started joining me for morning coffee, asking about family history and listening to stories about his wife's childhood. David began consulting me about household maintenance, actually writing down my advice instead of assuming he knew better. Mom, he said Saturday afternoon, Joe Martinez is coming to look at the electrical system Monday. You were right about calling him. Joe's reliable. He'll take care of you. Will you be here when he comes? In case he has questions about the house's history? I smiled. Of course. This is still my house, after all. Yeah, David said quietly. It is. 6 months later, I sat in my garden watching Emily help me plant tomatoes. The spring air was warm, and for the first time in years, I felt truly settled in my own home. Grandma, these plants are going to be huge, Emily said, patting soil around a seedling. They'll give us tomatoes all summer long, I said. We'll make salsa and sauce and give some to the neighbors. Can I help with the salsa? Of course. It's more fun when we do it together. David appeared at the garden gate, home from work and still wearing his store uniform. How are my gardeners doing? We're planting dinner, Emily announced. Looks like important work. He sat on the garden bench I'd bought for visitors. Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something. What's on your mind? Susan and I found an apartment, a small place but nice. We'd like to move out next month. I looked at him carefully. Is this because you want your own space, or because you think I want you gone? Because it's time. We're adults with our own family. We should be taking care of ourselves instead of living off your generosity. I see. But we'd like to keep having Sunday dinners here, if that's okay. And Emily loves spending time with you. I'd love that. And Mom, thank you for everything. for letting us stay when we needed help, for teaching us how to be better. People for not giving up on us when we acted like spoiled children. I reached over and squeezed his hand. You're my son, David. I never gave up on you. I just needed you to grow up. Linda and Mark had moved out the month before, into a house just 10 minutes away. Linda stopped by twice a week, sometimes to help with errands, sometimes just to visit. We were building a new relationship, one based on mutual respect instead of one-sided obligation. Mrs. Carter joined me on the porch after dinner, settling into the chair beside mine with a satisfied sigh. You did it, Margaret. You took your family back. I took myself back, I corrected. The family part was a bonus. Are you happy with how things turned out? I considered this. I'm proud of how things turned out. Happiness is easier to find when you respect yourself. And they respect you now, too. Most of the time. We're all still learning. Emily ran up the porch steps, grass stains on her knees, and dirt under her fingernails. Grandma, can I sleep over tonight? If it's okay with your parents. Mom already said yes. I smiled. Then we'd better get you cleaned up and ready for bed. As I helped Emily wash her hands in the kitchen sink, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different than I had a year ago. Stronger, more centered. The woman in the glass wasn't anyone's burden or afterthought. She was Margaret Hall, 68 years old, owner of her own home and architect of her own life. Grandma, Emily said as I tucked her into the guest bed, I'm glad you don't live in the basement anymore. Me too, sweetheart. Are you going to write a book about what happened? Why would I write a book? Because it's a good story, about how you reminded everyone that you're important. I kissed her forehead. Maybe I will write it down someday, for you to read when you're older. What would you call it? I thought about the journey from that cold basement to this warm bedroom, from feeling invisible to being truly seen. I'd call it The Foundation, I said, because that's what I am, the foundation this family's built on, and foundations, once you understand their importance, are never taken for granted again. Emily smiled sleepily. I like that title. Good night, sweetheart. Good night, Grandma. I love you. I love you too. I stood in the doorway for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds of my house settling around me. This was my home, filled with my family, built on my terms. It had taken 68 years and a trip to the basement to learn that love without respect is just another kind of servitude. But I'd learned. And more importantly, I taught my children that I was more than their mother. I was a person deserving of dignity, consideration, and gratitude. The foundation was strong again, and this time, everyone knew exactly where it was and what would happen if they forgot to tend to it. I turned off the lights and headed to my own bedroom, my room, in my house, where I belonged. Where I'd always belonged and where I would stay, on my own terms, for as long as I chose. The basement was empty now, nothing but storage space and old memories. The real Margaret Hall lived upstairs, where the light was warm and the family she'd rebuilt knew exactly who was keeping them all together. This was my story, and I was proud of how it ended. Not with revenge, but with recognition. Not with bitterness, but with boundaries. Not with the destruction of my family, but with its reconstruction on a foundation of mutual respect. I was Margaret Hall, and I had finally come home.